Well, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time out to come for the session. I know you have a lot of options, so thank you for taking the time out to understand NSX operations and best practices. I'm honored to have Thibaut over here. He's from the Pictet Group. He's going to walk us through some of the best practices that he has been going through with NSX while using NSX. But before I say anything, the lovely disclaimer slide, all right, that everybody must have seen plenty of times, but just, spend a few seconds over here on that. But with that, let me quickly walk you through the agenda for today. So we'll be giving you an introduction of both of ourselves. We'll be giving you an introduction to the Pictet Group. And then we'll be going through the architectural overview, and then day 0, day 1, and day 2. All right? Now, how we're going to structure this presentation in a way that Thibaut will talk about day 0 on the install and configure, and after that, I will talk about the best practices that from VMware that we can give you and the tools that we have provided for you. And similarly, again, for day 1, the first days of operations, his experiences, his learnings, and it's an absolutely unadulterated feedback over here from him. So, and then I'll be talking about what VMware NSX provides you in terms of day 1, and similarly with day 2, all right? So quickly to introduce myself, I'm a group product line manager with NSX. I handle the operations for NSX, so anything to do with lifecycle management, monitoring, logging, troubleshooting falls under my radar. This presentation will be shared later on. That little in over there means that you can click on that, you can go to my LinkedIn profile, get in touch with me if you have any feedback, anything at all. I'd be more than happy to take your questions. And I'll hand it off to Thibaut. Thibaut, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, thanks, Aditya. Hello, everyone. My name is Thibaut Bessot. I'm network and security engineer at the group Pictet. I am in charge of NSX, and I am there at the group since we implement NSX. So just a slide, I promise you no more about the Pictet Group. We are based in Geneva. We have around 30 offices all around the world. We are doing 4 different businesses that go from private banking, asset management, wealth, asset services, and alternative services. We have more than 5,000 employees all around the world, and we are based in 19 countries. So let's talk about techniques. Currently, our infrastructure for the group, we have 15 data centers all around the world. We have 20 NSX instances. This can seem a lot. We have 1 in every data center, and in some data center, we choose to split the VDI part and the server part to reduce the failure domain, and we have 1 lab instance. We have almost between 80 or 90% of our users on VDI. They use that day to day at the office and when they are working from home. We have more than 20 VM. Most of them are VDI, and we have also a lot of server. And we have more than 1,000 applications. So sometimes it's really hard when you're doing migration from one operating system to the other. And we have more than 3,000 segments because we are at the moment achieving the end of our migration on NSX. So the goal of today's presentation will be to tell you our story with NSX, or we start, so it will be the D0, or why we install NSX, or we configure it. And after that, the D1 will be our first day with NSX, what we implement to meet your needs. And the second day will be how we operate and maintain the day-to-day business and the upgrades. And time to time, Aditya will inform you about the capabilities of NSX for this different day. So, for the D0, I will talk about 4 different topics that I wish I knew before I start my journey with NSX. So the first one will be, why did we decide to install NSX? The second will be the deployment strategy that we implement. Because we have 20 instances, we need to think about how we do that in a clever way. After that, it will be the migration strategy and the team organization. So let's start. Why did we install NSX? We started our journey in 2019, and at the time, the network was really a middle-aged network. We had engineers that were spending their time to do CLI, typing command, adding VLAN, but nothing was automated. And we took the approach to say, okay, we need to start a new project for the VDI, and we want to start it from scratch, so we recreate everything. And from the beginning with NSX, the goal was to create something with infrastructure as code, where our user was able to have a self-service data center to ask for new segments themselves, for new firewalls themselves, and so on. And the security was, from the beginning, our concern. At the time, the network was really huge network with /20, /21 VLAN where there was tons of server on it. And on NSX, we decided to take another approach that I will talk later. So, about the installation. Like I said earlier, we have 20 instances. So you can imagine for the people that go through the process of installing NSX, it's tough to do it by hand, clicking everywhere, and to be consistent, to have the same installation everywhere. So to do so, we choose to go with Ansible at the time, because it was the automation module was provided by VMware, and we was able to deploy all the OVA, to install the T0, T1, to do all the BGP pairing, to configure a segment with that, and to have in every data center the same repeatable process that guarantees us that it is isometric all the way. After that, when you start to using NSX, you will have two environments. Your legacy one that's still running on VLAN with no overlay, and your new one. And at this moment, you will need to think about the strategy, the migration strategy. And I look you in the room, I see some head that say, yeah, it's a tough part. So like everyone, at the beginning, we start with the bridging because our server team say, oh, it's too cool. In 2 or 3 weekends, we can transfer everything. But we start with that and we realize, yeah, it doesn't fix all our issues. We have still a huge failure domain. The routing is done still on old core switches, and we doesn't have the visibility and the performance that we was looking for. So the second stage was to say, okay, now we need to re-IP the machine and to put them in small segments, which we choose /27, one per application. I will talk a bit after for that. And we have done that. At the beginning, there was some incident. We improved the process, but at the end, we realized that, yeah, we can do it, but there is still some incident. It consumes a lot of resources. And we change one more time our way of doing it. And we say, okay, the RIP is great, it's working, but it doesn't solve another issue. And this other issue is we are re-IPing some old server with some old operating system. So we choose our approach and say to the product manager, okay, this server is still on the old infrastructure. You need to take in charge this server, ask for new VM, and transfer your application. This was working great with 50% of the product manager that say, okay, I automate the installation of my server. It's everything as code with Puppet. I just deploy a new VM, I transfer it. But with the 50 other product manager, they say, yeah, I have nothing that is automated and it takes more time and time. And the result with the restaging was we didn't have any more incident, but the pace of the migration was really slow. So now we change again, and it's a mix between re-IP and restaging, and we are hoping to finish our migration of all our server on NSX at the end of next year. And that's, I think it's the most important part on the installation that I learned. When you start with NSX, I was seeing that NSX like a network and security product. It's there, it's a thing for network and security team alone. And since the beginning, when you start to installing NSX, you realize you can't work with your server team closely. And at the beginning, there was huge silo in our company. The server team was not talking to the network team, both directions. And we broke this silo. I am happy that I have one of my colleagues from the server team in the room. And now we continue our journey. It's working pretty well with all the team. And this year, we chose to add the IDPS on NSX. And we realized that it's the same process now to have the SOC that is working with us, exchanging what are the needs and things like this. So please, if you didn't install NSX yet and you are planning to do so, really look to work with all the people that are on the stack. It will help you a lot and avoid tons of issues.
Thank you, Siva. All right, so I'm going to wrap this day zero section with the different NSX setup strategies that we have at this point in time. So I've divided the day zero means basically installation, right? Installation of NSX and setting it up. So I divided into 4 major categories. So first one is the transport node profiles. So again, these features are all available today, so feel free to start using them in your NSX deployments. First one is the transport node profiles. As the name suggests, it's a profile that you create. You can, after creating, you set up the configuration, your layer 2 configuration, your VDSs, and configure any NSX DVPGs on them. And after that, you can attach those transport node profiles, or TNPs as we call them, and you can attach them to your vSphere clusters. Right? So that's one way of installing NSX at scale. We support 64 hosts per cluster, and that should get you going right from day zero. All right? That's one way of installation. We also support physical servers. Physical servers basically meaning bare metal servers with your operating system running on them. So if you anybody who is running physical servers over here with bare metal. Okay, a few of them. Yeah, it's usually a few of them. So you can actually protect your physical servers as VM workloads and as distributed firewalling workloads in NSX today by installing the bits on the physical servers, right? That's another way of installing NSX. We also have something called a Quick Start Wizard. The Quick Start Wizard is essentially literally a one-click install of NSX, right? What you do is that, well, actually 2 clicks. You have to select the vSphere cluster, the one that you want to select install NSX on. Assume there's no NSX on it, and you just click install. What it does is that in the background, it's going to read the underlying hardware of and the underlying hardware setup of your hypervisors. It's going to give you a recommended software L2 network connectivity. And if you're fine with it, you just click on install, and that's all it does. It's going to give you a nice illustration and visualization of what will be installed as well. However, if you don't like that, if you want to customize it, you can go ahead and customize it as well. The aim of this Quick Start Wizard is to minimize the number of clicks that you have for NSX installation. Right? And again, it works to the same scale that we support all across NSX. So that's another way of installing NSX. And the fourth one over there is multiple NSX managers talking to a single vCenter. Now, this is a new-ish feature. A lot of customers have asked us for features where they want to, let's say you have 3 vSphere clusters where you want to have isolated lifecycle management. Right? You want to have one cluster in version, say, 1.x, the other one in 2.x, another one in 3.x. You cannot do that with one single NSX manager managing all 3 NSX, all three clusters. But what we support is that you can have one NSX manager managing each of those clusters or multiple clusters, and all those NSX managers talking to the same VC. That way you have isolated lifecycle management, you have isolated backup restore, and that helps you. Let's say you have a dev, prod, and QE, and your production will obviously go much slower, but you can actually test it out on your dev environment and QE environment much faster, right? So this encompasses the NSX setup strategies. Follow them. This is a very high-level overview of them, and with that, I'll go on to the day one.
Okay. So once NSX is installed, you will start to operate it. And with operation comes the first issue and the first adaptation. So what we are going to talk in this part are 4 things. First of all, network provisioning. NSX is a great product that is API first, and you have all the tools to automate everything with it. So we are going to talk about this network automatization. Second thing is self-service firewall. I talked to you earlier. Our goal was to give to our user a way to do their rules themselves. After that, firewall logs visibility. I think it's an important point because NSX is not alone in the network. It lives with other systems and adaptive firewall rules. So, for the network provisioning, what we have learned is thinking from the beginning. So what we have done is we decide multiple things. First of all, we decide our segmentation, and our segmentation is done. Each application with all the server that came together as one segment and one segment per environment. We doesn't want to have production server that run in the same segment than UAT server or test server. The second thing is the size of this segment. We choose to have a /27 to avoid to lose too many IP, and if a segment is full, we create another one for the same segment and we add the number of segments that it is. And everything is micro firewall by default. And that was a huge change. We had some complaint from the server team and other team that was complaining that now there's a need to do more work because they need to do firewall rules for everything. But after that, we showed them that, it was easy to do that by themselves, and the rules was going in production in the day. We go over it. And with automatization, we go from a moment before NSX that was taking, I will say, maybe a week to have a network in production to 30 seconds. So this is an example of what we are doing. When somebody asks for a VM, there is script that run and check in our IPAM if there is a segment, if this segment for this application is free. And if it's not the case, you run an Ansible script that will ask to the IPAM what is the next range available for this data center. It will create the range in all NSX instances. So you will create one range in production, one range in UAT, and one range in test, and also one range for the DR. And it will also put all this information about which range we use in a Git repository where the user can find all the information about the network that he had. And like this, in less than 30 seconds with dynamic routing, you have your the segment gateway that is pinging. The second thing is how we give to our user the capability to do their own firewall rules. Before that, the user was just sending to the security teams emails, or they was filling Jira requests. Now we say, what is the interest of the security team to just copy-paste what was written on an email in a console, firewall console? There is none. It's better if they spend the time to analyze what the user is asking and if it's right. So now, all product managers have access to a Git repository where they have a folder with the name of their application. And based on that, in this folder, they have all the information about their application. Which server they have and which IP has this server, which network, which services they can use, and they can add some other. And after that, they can write their rules just for their application. And like this, the visibility of our firewall rules was improved a lot, because for one application, maybe we have 4 rules, and it's easy to review than having a complete firewall policy to review. Also, a thing that we changed a lot with this approach, before that we was pushing the firewall once or 2 weeks, and it was not good for the business was complaining. So now what we have done, we implement a CI/CD pipeline. We are pushing firewall rules in production every time. When the security team just review the pull request and validate it goes directly in production in less than 4 minutes. And at the beginning, some people in the security team was saying, yeah, we are going to have tons of incidents. And I can assure you, there was small incident, but nothing more or nothing less than what was before, when we was pushing the firewall on the Friday night. And on the Monday, we was coming at the work to see what's happened. When you start by doing that, to giving the user the capability to do their own firewall rules, you need also to give them a way to see their logs. Like this, they can troubleshoot their issue by themselves. And to do so, what we have done, we have used VMware area operation that was previously login site to collect all the firewall logs information for distributed firewall that stand on the ASXi. And at the beginning, we was just using VMware area operation for logs. It's great, it's a great product, but the main issue is you are just seeing what's happened on NSX. And most of the time, NSX is not living alone in the network. It integrates with other firewall products. For example, for us, we have Checkpoint and Fortinet and some other vendors. So to do so and have a complete overview of our system, we are sending all the firewall logs in an Elasticsearch, and after we are displaying that with a Grafana. Like this, our user can just see easily. I will show you what it looks like after. if they have an issue with the application, a drop or something like this, and they can prepare by themselves the pull request to solve this issue. So currently we have more than 1 million logs per minute, and it's really usable. It doesn't wait more than 5 seconds to have the result. And we are aggregating more than 100 firewalls. So this is what it looks like for the user. We have the platform that are displayed. It can be VMware if it's on NSX or other firewall vendors. We have the source IP and destination IP and the protocol that is totally normal. And one really cool feature that we add because we are doing firewall last log and there is a CI/CD pipeline are this blue line that you are seeing here. This blue line is just when a rule goes in production. And if you go on this blue line, you can see which firewall technology it applies and which product is touching. And like this, with the chart that is here, if suddenly everything go red, you can see, okay, is this firewall rules that was changed 5 minutes earlier that caused the issue, and you can roll back the commit, and you just by clicking on the commit. And due to that, we reduce the number of calls to our security team drastically because the user now need to check by themselves if they have a problem on the application. And most of the time, they are just sending a Teams message to say, hey, I have seen a drop on my application. Can you push in production? Can you review my pull request and push it in production? And it goes more smoother. The last thing that we use on NSX is totally different, and it helps us a lot. When we started our journey, our goal was to do firewalling on VDI. And one of the requests was, we had some application that was modern enough that was allowing the application to display some specific data when the user was at work and when he was at home. So, for example, some customer information was not displaying. But the issue, this doesn't work with all technology. So what we have done with the VDI, we have implemented tags, and each VDI is tagged based on the context. If the user is at work, he has full access to most of his application based on the profile of his business line. When he is going home, depending on the rules implementing in his business line, the firewall rules are changing automatically. And every time that he reconnects, so for example, if he's at work with his laptop and his VDI open on the laptop, if he shut down the laptop and go in the train and with his 4G he reconnect, the contact will be recompute and he will not have access, for example, if it's an IT guy, to his privileged admin desktop. And that is one of the cool features of NSX with the tag. You can change the rules on demand. Your turn.
All right, thank you. Excuse me. All right, so if day 0 is about deploy, day 1 is about consumption, all right? And day 2 is about operation. So as part of day 1, many of the times I see customers after deploying, monitoring, logging, troubleshooting is sometimes an afterthought. So this slide kind of captures what we have in terms of NSX that we provide under monitoring, troubleshooting, and logging, and then under third-party and second-party integrations. The reason I've separated this out over here is that gives you a pretty good lay of the land in terms of what are the tools that we have to offer, all right? Now, a lot of customers have brought it up that we have too many tools and they don't know what to use when. So the next slide over here, and this is going to be published as a blog later on, so don't worry about it. This one talks about the best practices about monitoring. So let's say, for example, when to use. If you want a high-level overview of the system, if you want an overview of specific NSX components, or check system capacity, you can look into the monitoring dashboard. And this is all available today in the NSX product itself, right? Let's say if you're looking for periodically monitoring specific metrics of NSX components, you can start talking to the NSX API. But then the key over there is periodically monitor, all right? Because if you start pulling the NSX manager too many times, it will take a toll on the NSX manager. And similarly with the time series metrics, if you're looking to assess the health of a specific component over a period of time, if you want to see spikes in performance, perform detailed analysis and predictive analysis, and so on and so forth, you can use the time series metrics. All right? So these 4 areas of monitoring should help you set up for day 1 monitoring of your entire setup. All right? This next slide talks about troubleshooting. So let's say based on what kind of a problem you're hitting, what kind of problem you're trying to debug over there, you start using these kind of tools over here. So you use packet capture if you want to identify any network performance issues, trace flow for debugging, like packets being dropped and so on and so forth, live traffic analysis for actually debugging live traffic, checking and sniffing into bidirectional traffic, running PCAPs, port mirroring, IPFix, and so on and so forth. All right. So these, again, like I said, this will be published as a blog, so don't worry about it. This will be public information, and it's there on the slides, which will be published. And similarly with syslogs and the online diagnosis system. The online diagnosis system, ODS, again, all these tools are available today in NSX. It came across from customer feedback saying that, okay, debugging NSX is very difficult. Okay, we need some kind of runbooks that SRE or even QE uses. So this is what we came up with. We had our SRE and our QE write our own runbooks, and now we publish them in NSX. You can actually go into NSX and run this tool using the API. Whatever problem that you hit over there, run the runbook. Runbook is going to analyze the problem for you and give you recommended next steps. Right? So this is just an example of the day one operations that you can run in terms of monitoring, logging, and troubleshooting. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Thibaut for day two.
Okay. And the last part is about how we upgrade and maintain NSX. It can be a tough day sometimes, but it improves a lot. The first part in maintaining an NSX is you need to upgrade it to have the new functionality and everything. And to do so, we have a pretty large number of ESXi under NSX. I think we are around 800. So if we go in maintenance mode, it will take weeks, and we cannot afford that. So during the weekend, what we are doing, we use in-place upgrade. Yes, there is a small disruption, but it's really small. For us, we noticed 1 second, and we are able, by using this technique of in-place upgrade, to reduce our upgrade time for the biggest NSX instance that we have with more than 130 hosts at less than 3 hours. And 3 hours is not for the host, it's for the complete infrastructure. And it's improved a lot because the first time that we started with NSX, the first installation was in version 2.4. And for the people that have installed this version and tried to upgrade in 2.5, you clicked on the button upgrade host, you can reboot all your data center. So it's improved a lot. Sorry. There is still some limitation with in-place upgrade that we are facing, and we talk closely with Aditya and his team about that. But it's nothing that it's really painful. You just need to disable your IDPS and your layer 7 and activity identity rules before to start the upgrades to be able to do it with in-place upgrade. And the cluster size, that when you have a really large cluster, is doing 10 hosts, you need to wait 20 minutes, is doing 10 other hosts, if we can improve this size. Let's talk about troubleshooting. You see the quantum computer at the back of the screen? Sometimes NSX looks like that, when you have a really big issue with NSX. But more and more, there is really useful tool. Aditya talked about most of them, and currently, in my company, we use mostly the trace flow to prove that there is the communication that is going well. Some playbooks are really nice. And what I like a lot with NSX, it's API first. So some features are not implemented in the GUI. You need to use the API. And it's really nice that we are able to dump all the all the API configuration and to put it in Postman, and you have already all the calls that are ready to use, and it simplifies a lot the operation. And regarding the troubleshooting, I think we use NSX since 4 years. We had 3 major issues. I will say 1 P1, when we was losing 1 packet every week, but the wrong packet, and 2 other smaller issues, but it's really a stable product when we talk about networking. And last part is how NSX help us to simplify our disaster recovery. I think most of the people in the room are doing DR, and you know when you are going in DR, you have multiple options. You can do stretch cluster or you can do array IP. With NSX, it offers you another alternative. Before NSX, we was having huge layer 2 stretch VLAN, And when there was an issue in one data center, 30 seconds later, the issue was in the other data center. So when we start our journey with NSX, we say we doesn't want layer 2 switches around data center. But the server team say, we are not going to re-IP all the server at every DR test or when there is a DR. So we find this solution is every time that we create a segment for production, we create the same segment on our DR site, but it's not connected to the tier 1. So this means that there is only the production segment that is announced in the network. Like this, when the VM are running, we use Zerto, that is an HP application, to do the replication of our VM on our DR site. And when we need to invoke the DR, we have the capability of not doing a big bang. We can just say, okay, this application, for example, here it's AAA, that will go in DR. And to do so, what we are doing, we are shutdowning all our VM in production, we are disconnecting our tier 1, and we are connecting the tier 1 to the tier 0 on our DR site. And with BGP, the segment is announced on our DR site, and we can start back the VM. And like this, we avoid to have multiple stretch VLAN, and we avoid to do some re-IP. And it's working pretty well.
Thank you, Thibault. All right, so as part of the day 0, day 1, and day 2, so now when we're talking about day 2, we're talking about actual operations, all right? So at some point in time, you will have to upgrade your NSX deployment. So the upgrade can be divided into 3 major areas, all right? One is the upgrade pre-checks, the edge and host upgrades, and then the NSX manager upgrades. Now, these 3 areas, the upgrade pre-checks essentially focuses on efficiency. So what we do is that we allow you to run upgrade pre-checks as many times as you want, and I'll be talking about that in the next couple of slides. From the flexibility point of view, we do mandate an order of edge first and then host upgrades. But then now we're giving you the flexibility in a future release. Well, not future, it's already out right now. And the availability. From the NSX manager upgrade, we do provide you some kind of a rolling upgrade mechanism where your north-south APIs are up most of the times, all right? So now, this is one of the, excuse me. This is one of the features that we released in NSX 4.1.1, which is basically asynchronous upgrade pre-checks. So one of the feedback that we got from customers is that when they schedule an upgrade and they schedule a maintenance window, all right, they start running this upgrade pre-check, and after that, they get a list of issues that they need to resolve. They weren't prepared for that. They were like, okay, fine, let me go and resolve A, B, C, D, E. They go and resolve those A, B, C, D, E, and then they again come back and run the pre-check again. And then again, they say, okay, I have 4 more things to do. What happens in the end is that resolving those issues eats up completely into their maintenance window. And then what happens is that they have to again schedule another maintenance window. So we got this feedback, and now what we do is that we are going to let you, starting 4.1.1, NSX 4.1.1, we will let you run these upgrade pre-checks separately. It's going to be an atomic operation. You can run them as many times as you want during the duration of your NSX deployment or an operation. If you see, let's say you have an upgrade scheduled maybe a month later, you can run these pre-checks today. You can see what kind of issues you have. You can give yourself ample time to actually run, to go ahead and resolve those issues, and then go on to, and then maybe a week later, run it again, and so on and so forth. As you make more configuration changes, as you keep deploying new firewall rules, new virtual machines, you can keep running them as you go forward, all right? So you don't need to upload the upgrade bundle at all. So when you run your upgrades and when you actually schedule your maintenance window for your upgrades, you as the operator will be focusing only on upgrades and nothing else. You will be upgrading, you don't need to resolve any of these there, all right? So this basically lets you check the upgrade readiness in advance. So this is definitely a good best practice that you must implement in your upgrade schedule. Another one is the flexible upgrade order, which I spoke about, all right? Initially, we were always prescriptive about the upgrade order, first edge, then host, and then NSX manager. We got a lot of feedback from customers because they have the typical architecture would be data center racks vertically over here, and you have your compute hypervisors, and then you have your edges, and then compute hypervisors, and you have your edges. Customers wanted to upgrade, let's say, edge cluster 1 and 2, then upgrade all the hosts over there that are running through those edges, and then move on to the next track. We weren't allowing that before. But now we've broken that, we've given you that flexibility right now, starting with 4.0.1. So you will be able to choose your edge transport node upgrade order going forward. All right, so that gives you a lot more flexibility. Trying to change the slide. There you go. All right. With rolling upgrades, that was a feature that came up in 3.2.0, so effectively a little old. But this one gives you rolling upgrade of the NSX management cluster. Initially, when we used to do NSX management NSX management cluster upgrades, the North-South API used to have a downtime of about, say, 20, 25 minutes. And that basically meant so no networking, no configurations were allowed on your deployment, NSX deployment during NSX manager upgrades. Starting 3.2.0, we have introduced this feature of NSX rolling upgrades that brings you near zero-time upgrade of your NSX management plane, which is fantastic. What that means is that you can continue your NSX manager upgrade. It's going to upgrade one by one. Your duration of your NSX manager upgrade will be a little longer. However, your North-South API downtime will be near zero. All right? So you can continue making North-South API calls. You can continue making any config changes, and so on and so forth. The other feature that I spoke to you about, the multiple NSX managers to single vCenter, we support this starting 4.1.0 and 3.2.2, and support for NSX managers in a single vCenter. Like I said, if you ever want isolation of lifecycle management or backup restore in your clusters, you can always deploy it this way. Again, these are deployment best practices, all right? So definitely feel free to deploy your setup in this way. You don't need to deploy multiple vCenters with each and every NSX over there. Let's see, even if you're hitting an NSX scale limit, right, which is connected to vCenter, you can always deploy another NSX manager and deploy and manage the other vSphere clusters with it. Now, a lot of customers have shown apprehension to upgrades, right? And I understand that upgrades can be a little, stressful, because it has the possibility of some kind of downtime. So what we've done is that we've documented the entire upgrade best practices on this nsx.techzone.vmware.com. So go to this nsx.techzone.vmware.com, click Start, choose Activity Path, and there's a brand new section called Understanding Upgrading to NSX 4.1. The reason it says NSX to 4.1 and not anything before that is that we want you to be on the latest and greatest version of NSX. We want you to use the features. We are encouraging you to upgrade to the latest version over there. So you get to know the key capabilities of the latest releases, you get to know the best practices of upgrading and troubleshooting, and the best part is you get these video-guided step-by-step journals. These short 2 to 3 minute videos have been created by our engineers, the ones that I work with. They've created these videos over there and gives you VMware recommended best practices for every single stage of your upgrade. So let's say when you're going to be upgrading your MUP, when you're going to be upgrading your edges or your hosts, what are the best practices, how to create best kind of host groups, how to schedule your in-place upgrade versus maintenance mode upgrade, and so on and so forth. Those kind of best practices are all captured over here, so please feel free to go through this. And last but not the least, the NSX playbook. The NSX playbook is a very good playbook written by my technical product management counterpart. It basically gives you a use case based playbook on how to run and operate NSX. Right? It gives you best practices. It's completely use case based, and it's a step-by-step guide, and it's very, very easy to navigate. All right? What it does is that for every single error that you're going to hit, is going to give you a recommended best practice, what kind of tool you could run over there. It's available on this community's link over here. You can also Google it, by the way. Just simply Google NSX Playbook, and it's going to show up over there. The first result usually is the one that shows up over there. So NSX Playbook should also give you a good way to debug and run NSX whenever you're looking to debug and run. All right. With that, I hope Thibaut and I were able to give you a good understanding of how our customers are using NSX, operating NSX, and a good run of your day 0, day 1, and day 2. And it captured the best practices of day 0, day 1, and day 2, and hope we helped over there. So on behalf of Thibaut and myself, thank you very much, and hope you any questions.
Thank you. Do you have any question?
Any questions, folks?
What version are you running right now?
We are migrating from 3.2.2 to 4.1.2. But
sorry, I just repeat the question because it's being recorded. The question was what version is Pictet Group running right now? Yeah.
But it's still a migration in progress.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Yes.
In which cases you need more than one NSX manager?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear.
In which cases you do? Sorry. In which cases do you need more than one A6 manager?
in which case we have more than one NSX instances, is your question?
Yeah.
So in every data center that we have all around the world, we would like that the data center is independent from each other. So in every data center, where we have VDI or server, we install an NSX instance. And in our main data center in Switzerland, we choose to split the VDI part and the server part to avoid to reduce the failure domain. We doesn't want to have our VDI that go down at the same time than our server.
Okay.
But it was done at the time in 2.4, and maybe we are thinking to merge them again. But one instances by data center will stay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, folks? I have 2 mics now. Right. There you go. Sorry, thank you.
I was wondering, why did you have to re-IP everything?
Because in our network, we had really big big VLAN at the time that was coming from the beginning of the century, and where people was putting everything, and yeah, it's easy, everything is communicating without any firewall rules, everything is great, and you have VM that are in 3 data centers that communicate to each other. There is no segmentation between environment, and now we say for all the VM that stay forever, so I'm talking about some VM that can live for 10 years, maybe sometime more, we would like to move them, and we would like to avoid to keep this old infrastructure, network infrastructure, and move everything on NSX. And when you are on the overlay, it's much easier to do some maintenance or adjustment on the routing than when you need to deal with physical network. I answer your question?
Any other questions, folks? Straightforward?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Oh, sorry, there was another question over there. If you don't mind. Hi.
Who took the initiative for the NSX project? Was it a network team or was it
So I am on the organigram, I am part of the network team, but I'm working closely most of the time with the security team. I am 50-50, but it started as a network project. And immediately when you add firewall, emerged with the security team. And at the time, the security team and the network team was together. Now they split because we are too many. But it's really helped when the team are together to start as a common team, because immediately when you implement security and networking together, you will have some issue where people need to communicate to see where it come from. And after that, what we realized, and I was talking, is at the time for us, it was really difficult to climb one floor and to go see the server team and explain them that we had some issue due to the E6i configuration. And for them, it was always the network. And we broke this mentality, but it takes time. And it's really the meaning of my slide to say, okay, from the beginning thing, you need to break some silo and to make the people work together.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Hi, Thibault.
Hi.
How do you, I mean, at which point did you decide to go bare metal edge?
Yeah.
That's the first question. And the other one is, how do you address the tromboning issue, if you do have any?
Okay, for the first question, I know Kong is a neighbor, I will say. He's working for the other big bank in Geneva. For every server, for every NSX instances that we had, except the lab, we have bare metal edge node. And we choose that because in version 2.4 there was performance issue. And from this day, we stay with that, but we are really looking for the GPU to be able to put back the edge node as a VM with GPU performance, the same performance at bare metal edge. And what was the second question, sorry?
If you do have any tromboning issue from legacy to NSX, actually on the other way around.
It's a really good point. One thing that we underestimate was the legacy firewall. Currently, we are also in the process to removing all our old firewall and use the same method that I show you on the slide to do the rules on NSX, but also on Fortinet and Checkpoint firewalls. So like this, the user are just writing their rules, and after the magic appears, and he do the rules at the right place for the right technology. It's working perfectly well, but what we discover is more and more we move workload that was previously on VLAN-based ESXi behind some firewall, and the database stay at the same place. You increase the north-south traffic, and suddenly there is something that broke. And it's really something that you need to monitor closely and to plan your migration. You need to think in your migration, okay, I will move 100 VM, they are connected to this database. What are the bandwidth with this database? Or do I need to move the database first and do some capacity planning? Yeah, and it's more tougher to move a database than moving a VM. Yeah. Any other question? Oh, so thanks a lot for your time, and I hope to see you.
Thank you very much.